with me just a moment while that gets going. Okay. All right, so we are recording. Let's see, so I do actually have a couple of people with hands up. I might just see if they have sort of process questions. Tonight is all about hearing from folks, from the attendees. And so we'll certainly spend the majority of the time doing that, but, oh, and both people put their hands down. So those must have been accidental hands. So great. Well, as I said, why don't we get started? So I'm Jay Chase. I'm the planning director here in town. This is the third public forum for the sort of re-engagement, if you will, of the comprehensive plan. As I said a few moments ago, tonight we have about a 20-minute presentation that we'll run through, and then we really want to hear from folks about your questions, comments, and anything else about the comprehensive plan. As I mentioned, this is the third in a series of public forums that the Long Range Planning Committee has conducted this month. Actually, two were in November. This is being the 1st of December. Really with the primary goal of collecting some public feedback and making any final edits to the plan before it gets forwarded out of committee to the town council. With us tonight, we have Dave Merrill, who is the chair of the Long Range Planning Committee, and Jean Marie Caterina, who is the council liaison to the committee. And so with myself, Karen Martin, the Economic Development Director, and Jamel Torres, the town's assistant planner.
Jay,
so with that,
Jay,
yeah, go ahead.
Jay, if I could just let folks know that I need to disappear. I have another meeting at 7 that I have to be at. So if I all of a sudden disappear, don't take it personally. And I will catch up on everything afterwards. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, and thank you. That's a good. So as I said, we are recording this. So even those members of the committee that aren't with us tonight are going to have an opportunity to watch that. We are also taking notes. I should also note that the town's website, the comprehensive plan, has its own page, and there are links to the previous public forums, as well as a lot of other great information on there, as well as the comp plan itself. So with that, I don't know if anyone else has anything to say before we launch into the presentation. Otherwise, I'll turn to Karen to kick us off with that. As I said, this is about a 20-minute presentation, and then we'll jump into the questions.
Welcome to an overview of the Scarborough Community's 2020 Comprehensive Plan. This plan is the culmination of input from community residents, town committees, and local organizations. It has also used data from local, state, and national sources to inform the process. The plan reflects the vision of Scarborough and presents a blueprint for a sustainable future that reflects the priorities and values of the community. My name is Dave Merrill. I'm the chair of the Long Range Planning Committee, or LRPC as it's fondly called. This is the committee charged by the council with bringing forward a document for adoption. We have solicited feedback from all the groups above and been at the hub of communications throughout this process. It has been our objective to hone down a vast amount of information down into a document that has something useful for every resident and perhaps opens some eyes to the complexities and interdependencies of the town. The presentation tonight will talk about the community vision reflected in the plan, review the public input process, describe plan strategies, and identify steps towards adoption. We look forward to tonight's discussion and ongoing community dialogue.
Hi, I'm Jay Chase. I'm the planning director here in Scarborough, and along with the voices of the Long Range Planning Committee members and Karen Martin, the director of the Economic and Development Corporation here in town, I'm pleased to present this plan to you this evening. The plan starts with a vision from the community. We will talk in a moment about the public process that it went into developing this. So I'm not going to take time to do that here, but it is overall a visionary document that provides a blueprint for smart, sustainable evolution that reflects the priorities and values of Scarborough residents. The plan seeks to safeguard the town's history and sense of place by stimulating the conditions for short and long-term needs as identified through the planning process. In many ways, the 2020 Comprehensive Plan builds on the foundation of the 2006 Comprehensive Plan. It seeks to implement a vision that preserves the character of Scarborough while addressing targeted development in a way that provides for economic opportunities, protects the natural environment, and improves upon the high quality of life for all residents. In many ways, the 2006 Comprehensive Plan was a very prescriptive plan that described exact measures for the community to embrace in moving forward. The 2020 Comprehensive Plan has taken a different tact in really thinking about systems and seeks a more synergistic approach to the diverse range of activities that occur within the town between development, preservation of open space, traffic, housing choices, while thinking about the impacts on not only our residents, but on the municipal capacity to serve the future needs. The comprehensive plan touches on a diverse range of town activities and policies that are important for the community and future leaders and decision makers to consider in the context of the entire community. As the plan touches on such a wide-ranging activities and policies across the entire community, it's important to understand that not everything in this plan is intended to happen once or to happen quickly. This is a visionary document for the community to rely on and look to as we develop and implement future policies and regulations for the town.
Hello, I'm Robin Saunders. I live in the Pleasant Hill neighborhood. I'm a member of the Long Range Planning Committee and liaison to the Planning Board, where I've served for 5 years. I'm pleased to introduce you to the first of our 5 visions in the town of Scarborough's comprehensive plan. Vision 1, the marsh is central to our identity, and therefore future land use will follow a pattern of development that is sensitive to protecting the marsh as well as the town's natural resources. Under this vision, the plan identifies strategies such as future land use map, balancing growth and the natural environments, sustainability, conservation, stormwater management, sea level rise, vulnerabilities, and I'm quite pleased to see that stewardship is near the top of the list of guiding principles for our comprehensive plan.
Hi, my name is Corey Fellows. My wife and I live in the Pine Point area, and we have 3 boys, all of whom attend Scarborough High. I formerly served on the planning board, including several years as board chair. During that time, I've seen Scarborough go through multiple economic ups and downs along with the region and nation, but it has continued an overall trajectory of controlled development and growth. Effective land use planning requires more than just making zoning designations or painting different colors on a map. Our land use vision should be a dynamic reflection of our community's values and aspirations. Future land use patterns will create opportunities for the efficient delivery of municipal services and infrastructure, resulting in fiscal sustainability. Under this vision, the comprehensive plan identifies strategies that consider the long-term financial stability of the town, infrastructure investments, and resiliency, all while maintaining balanced budgets, strategic partnerships, public safety services, recycling, a community center, broadband, public school facilities, and the library.
Good evening. My name is Rick Cheney, and I'm a member of the Long Range Planning Committee. I also currently serve on the Board of Directors of the Scarborough Economic Development Corporation and am president of the Scarborough Land Trust. Previously, I served on the Planning Board, as well as a number of committees in town, including the Growth and Services Committee and the Open Space Committee. Lastly, in 2006, I chaired the Comprehensive Plan Update Committee that drafted the current comprehensive plan. I've been a resident of Scarborough since 1994, and I live with my wife in a development off the Black Point Road known as Prout's Landing. Tonight, I'd like to introduce to you Vision 3 of the 2020 Draft Comprehensive Plan. Vision 3 anticipates that our ordinances will support the diversity and character of existing and emerging neighborhoods, centers, and open spaces in town. Under this vision, we look at the need for a simplified zoning ordinance, home affordability and availability, opportunities for active living, and the development of community and community identity. We look forward tonight to a more detailed discussion of Vision 3, as well as the other aspects of the comprehensive plan, and ultimately look forward to the council's adoption of the plan. Thank you very much.
Good evening. I'm Dave Merrill, a member of the Long Range Planning Committee. I've lived in the Windward Heights neighborhood of Scarborough for almost 20 years and worked in the design and construction industry for almost 30. I got involved during the previous 2006 comprehensive plan as a committee member and have participated on many of the subsequent committees formed to implement and study planning initiatives in the town. I want to introduce you to Vision 4 of the plan's 5 visions. Vision 4 states, Scarborough's economy will support a broad assortment of companies that will provide stability to the tax base, that blend with and protect the natural resource base, and that support opportunities for its residents. Under this vision, we look at the components of a healthy and sustainable local economy, such as entrepreneurship, branding, communication, infrastructure, information, working with our natural resource-based organizations and labor force. This vision was culled from comments and feedback received during the initial outreach done at the beginning of our process. It signals one of the common themes brought forward in the 5 visions and is intended to provoke thought, discussion, and study in the years to come as we shape the evolution of Scarborough. It is our hope that future groups will take this vision and formulate creative, sound ideas to promote a well-balanced and healthy economy for our town. I thank you for your time and continued thoughtful input.
Hello, my name is Judy Roy, and I've lived in Scarborough for 68 years, and currently live over in the Green Acres area. I've been involved in the town since '99, serving on the council for 15 years in that period of time, from then until November of '05. And I'm pleased to serve on the Long Range Planning Committee. And my focus would be to introduce Vision number 5. Vision 5, Scarborough's transportation network will support current and future land uses that create efficiencies, which reduce the impact of traffic on residents and businesses. Under this vision, we look at the impact of traffic on residents, walkability, improving connectivity, transit opportunities, complete streets, and street acceptance standards in the changing technology and traffic management.
Hello, my name is Alan Paul, and I'm a former member of the Planning Board and currently serve as a member on the Long Range Planning Committee and on the Board of Directors for the Scarborough Economic Development Corporation. I live off Black Point Road in Prout's Landing along with my wife, and we have lived at that residence for 25 years. In addition to the plan vision, this plan contains a conservation and growth map. The conservation and growth map sets up the framework for a general pattern of development and land use by setting forth strategies such as outlying areas west of the turnpike should retain their rural character and protect open spaces. Natural areas, agriculture, land, and open space should be protected and connected wherever feasible. Public water and sewer infrastructure should be encouraged within designated growth areas. A majority of new residential and commercial development should be located in the growth areas. The identity of established neighborhoods should be enhanced, and new development should complement the existing scale and design. Businesses are an essential part of the community and will continue to contribute a significant portion of local taxes. Future zoning and land use regulations will adapt as necessary to implement the visions and strategies of the plan.
The Conservation and Growth Map is the articulation of many of the strategies that are laid out in the plan and many that we have just heard from Alan. Through the public planning sessions, we heard support from the community regarding the concept of a conservation and growth approach that focuses on conserving land first and designating focused areas where development and redevelopment should occur. By allowing for more intense development in areas specifically chosen by the community for future growth and limiting development elsewhere, Scarborough can reap environmental and economic benefits and steward its natural resources and protect the character of the existing neighborhoods in the community. By organizing the town according to conservation and growth areas, intentional and informed decisions can be made about how to most effectively spend municipal dollars on infrastructure improvement consistent with the plan. The Conservation and Growth Map is organized around different growth sectors that set out conservation priorities and inform the intensity and character of new development. The boundaries of these sectors are imperfect and intended to reflect a general pattern of desired future growth. The conservation open space sector is an area that is protected from development in perpetuity, either through environmental protection laws or regulations, as well as land acquired for conservation through the purchases of easement or outright purchase of the land. These also include our surface water bodies, such as the marsh and streams and other riparian corridors and wildlife areas. The conservation and open space sector amounts to 24% of the total area of the town. The rural residential sector remains a rural area with limited development. The remaining agricultural land is preserved in cooperation with landowners, and opportunities for connecting natural areas and open spaces are explored, including a greenway along the Nonsuch River. Future residential development that does occur is intended to be at low density and designed to maintain the rural character of the area and provide buffers along significant natural resources. The rural residential sector of the plan equates to 48% of the town's area. The low to moderate density residential sector encompasses a number of our residential neighborhoods. The character and identity of these various neighborhoods is to be maintained, and infill is to be a scale and character that is compatible with the existing development. The availability and quality of the public infrastructure, including green spaces, are upgraded as a result of development and implementation of neighborhood plans. Low to moderate density residential sector comprises 15% of the town's land area. Low to moderate density non-residential growth sector is an area that is mostly developed in commercial and industrial suburban patterns, but still contains some underutilized parcels, and redevelopment opportunities. These are areas that were developed in conventional, auto-oriented suburban pattern and are not expected to change much except for incremental improvements to businesses as they come and go. New development and redevelopment should be encouraged to articulate some of the goals of the community with respect to infrastructure improvements. The low to moderate density non-residential areas comprise 13% of our land area. As previously mentioned, 87% of the area is really identified for very minimal changes to the overall characteristic and design of the town. The main focus of the growth and discussion of this comprehensive plan are really around 9% of the area that are encompassed by these activity centers. While the plan focuses much of the verbiage and language around these limited land areas, these are the areas that have the greatest challenges and opportunities for focusing the future growth so we can preserve those characteristics, and natural areas that the community has identified they so value. The focus of the growth areas are really around activity centers, such as the Regional Activity Center, which you can see in the middle of the map, which is around the Scarborough Downs and Higas Parkway area, as well as the community activity centers, which encompass Oak Hill and Dunstan. The Regional Activity Center has been identified potential development for a tremendous opportunity to create an authentic and complete town center within Scarborough and have a regional draw. This would consist of a mix of uses and walkable area where people can live, shop, work. This would be the most intensely developed area of the town. It includes Scarborough Downs property as well as parcels generally within a mile radius, including the Higas Parkway. The other identified areas are called community activity centers, and these are the Oak Hill area and Dunstan neighborhoods, as I mentioned. These are largely built out areas, but still have many vacant or underutilized land areas with opportunities for redevelopment within those communities. Additional growth and development in the areas is desirable due to the presence of existing infrastructure and services, and the plan envisions that most residential and non-residential development over the next 10 years will occur either in the Regional Activity Center or the Community Activity Centers. The plan also describes an area called the Corridor Transformation Sector. This really runs along the Route 1 corridor between Dunstan and Oak Hill, and really envisions the area to evolve as a mixed-use commercial district, connecting the two activity centers. However, the Route 1 corridor warrants some additional attention for access management and traffic calming, with a progressive transformation of development patterns to increase the amenities in the area. Development patterns should consider orientation around reliable and regular transit as more viable densities in the activity centers increase. The remaining sector I haven't mentioned are our village growth sectors, which are some of the town's original village areas that already provide some moderate level of services to the neighborhoods which surround them. These include the North Scarborough area, areas around Eight Corners, Black Point neighborhood, the Higgins Beach neighborhood, and the Pine Point Beach neighborhood. While each village has its own characteristics and intensities of residential and non-residential uses, in the future, such services will be maintained at a level consistent with the overall pattern of development within each village. As we conclude tonight's presentation, we want to provide an update of the process for moving forward towards adoption of the plan. While this draft was forwarded to the council in early March by the Long Range Planning Committee, COVID interrupted the expected adoption process. And as such, we are re-engaging the process, which began in October with a joint hearing of the Town Council, Planning Board, and Long Range Planning Committee. Following that joint workshop, we are conducting these 3 public forums to engage public comment Based on the feedback received at these public forums and in emails and other written correspondence, the Long Range Planning Committee will reconvene for any final adjustments prior to making recommendations to the council. Ultimately, the recommendations made by the Long Range Planning Committee are just that, recommendations. The plan's formal adoption is made by Town Council. As part of the formal adoption process, the Town Council and Planning Board will also hold public hearings on the matter, which are expected to occur sometime early in the new year.
I hope the community recognizes this plan as a visionary document. There's work to do once the plan is adopted, but now we have it.
Great, thank you for sharing that, Karen.
About the siren.
That's quite all right. So as I said, I gave my introductory piece, and really we're here to hear from folks in attendance. It's great to see we have 25 people here that are sort of in our attendance list. Unfortunately, we all understand, we are having to do this virtually. We're not able to sit around a room and to have sort of a more open dialogue, but we want to try to have as much of a dialogue and conversation with you all as possible. As was mentioned at the end of the video there, we are also taking comments, written comments. I actually put my email address under as my name, so please feel free to jot that down and send us any thoughts, comments you have, because the Long Range Planning Committee will be getting together through the month of December to talk about any adjustments that we may want to make prior to making final recommendations to council. So I don't know if anyone else, Dave or Jean Marie, Karen, want to chime in before we throw it open to folks. I will just, before I do that, mention that if you, we want to hear from folks. So please use the raise your hand feature, which you should be able to find at the bottom of your screen. And if folks can put their hands up, we will do our best to call on you in the order in which I see them go up. So not seeing anyone else on the committee wants to jump in right now. I see Dana. We'll call you up, Dana, to share.
Thanks, Jay. Hi, everyone. Presentation was terrific. I managed to get through reading about 2/3 of the plan. I admit I haven't gotten through all of it. So my question has to do with what you're anticipating in terms of what will be the most controversial portions of the plan. And I don't mean just the loudest voices, because there's always a few, but really if you look at the general mood and temperament of our community, where do you really think the controversies and the conflicts will come from? And I guess specifically when I looked at the data around the questions that were asked during some of the engagement processes, I highlighted traffic, of course. Traffic is always going to be one of them. But to me, what stood out more was the differences around housing, how people feel about high density, and about support for community centers and other kinds of regional centers. So what do you think is going to happen, and what are you going to do about it? How are you going to address it? I didn't mean to make that sound quite so challenging.
No, that's quite okay. I think that is the challenge. What are we going to do about these things? And I do think from my perspective, the things I hear frequently, traffic, I think, is certainly one of the first things I hear from folks in the community as one of our bigger challenges, particularly along the major corridors. And so, really what this plan, as having read through the plan, starts to identify the issues. It starts to identify maybe where we want to try to go, but it doesn't necessarily have the answers, right? Because I think, a lot of these issues, housing diversity and choice, traffic solutions, really require a deeper dive and require their own community dialogue and discussion. But I really, I think to your question as to you sort of asked, what do you anticipate to be most controversial? Maybe I'll leave that to the counselor to answer. But what I see as most challenging from a staffing perspective, I think really are issues moving forward around traffic. I think that's continues to be just a challenging issue for the community. Jean Marie, I don't know if you have anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the big things that people talk about is growth, and that we have too much growth in Scarborough, but yet I haven't seen anyone who says that back it up with data yet. So I would like to see, and I know the council is interested in seeing, we need more statistics and data as to impact on growth. And I've asked my fellow counselors who complain about it, who say, oh yeah, we need to update growth management ordinance. Yeah, we do, because it's time to do it. But what do you mean by too much growth? And I'm not getting anything concrete. But that being said, we are working on that. And I do want to remind people again that the comprehensive plan is more the larger blueprint, so to speak, the vision. We deliberately made this comprehensive plan a little more broad-based. The last one was very specific because we needed to update ordinances badly back in 2006. So those ordinances, and I'm chair of ordinance, those ordinances have been updated. Maybe they could use a couple tweaks here and there, but they are definitely, they're pretty well set. So this is why we have more a vision as to where do we see growth areas in town. And if people have looked at the comprehensive plan, they'll see it's pretty limited to the areas in town. And we do have Scarborough Downs in there. And I have heard loud and clear from folks that we do need to put a bit more about Scarborough Downs into the actual, excuse me, comprehensive plan. So it's like anything. Not everyone's happy with it, but that's, if we had something that everyone was happy with, I'd be shocked. So there you go.
I might just chime in, not to be redundant, but I agree. This is a very high level view of all the topics in town. And I think there's probably some feeling amongst the committee members that similar to the 06 plan, we need to formulate future committees to study in detail or in some broad sense the really challenging topics that are in the comprehensive plan, and continue with the community dialogue to hone in and really fine tune if changes are needed in ordinance or charters or anything along those lines. It's still a process, and we're in the middle of it. This is just really raising the questions that need to be studied.
Great, thank you.
Jay, my apologies for being late. I got tied up at a different appointment.
Understood. Yep. We just opened up to questions, and Dana was our first. And I now see that I have Ruby is the next hand that I see up. So Ruby, be happy to hear what you have to say.
Hi. I have a couple of questions and a couple of comments. And one is, and maybe you had answered this question, what is the process now for adopting this plan and saying, okay, this is the blueprint for going forward for the next 5-10 years? That's my first question. The second is, can we expect to see the plan referenced for any new project that Scarborough takes on? For example, addressing any project to alleviate some of the traffic issues on Route 1. My third question is, I live in one of the target growth areas, and on a map plan earlier on, my house was eliminated by kind of connecting these dead-end streets that are everywhere to alleviate traffic. So I'm concerned about that personally. What sorts of recourse or what is the plan in trying to make, for example, life better in Scarborough? How does that balance with individuals who may be impacted in a negative way?
Great, thank you. Let's see, so start with the first, sort of try to take these in somewhat of order here. So the first question I heard is, what is the process for adopting? So ultimately, the comprehensive plan gets adopted by the town council. The long range planning committee is advisory to and makes recommendation to the council. So coming out of these public forums, the long range planning committee is going to collect the comments that we're receiving at this meeting, the other meetings and emails and those sorts of things, and make any final edits and make their final recommendation to council. We're targeting probably early in the new year, mid-January probably timeframe. From there, council had a workshop actually just a couple weeks ago, and they're formulating what they're going to do with the comprehensive plan. Statutorily, there is a requirement that a public hearing be held by the planning board and town council. That's sort of the one statutory thing that needs to happen, but my understanding is council is going to roll out their own sort of public process for discussion. And so let's see, how can we expect to see the plan referenced for new projects? Certainly, I think, you know, the plan sort of sets the vision or the foundation, if you will, for where the town's trying to go. So I think, you know, when we say we were to do a traffic study, we would sort of take a look at what the comprehensive plan talks about with regards to traffic, or when the Housing Alliance is working on thinking about affordable housing, they'll take a look at sort of the language around there. So really the plan is intended to be, you know, active and utilized, not just by the long range planning committee, but all the various committees in town council and citizens as we think about where the community wants to go. I think the one thing I just want to make note of is really it's, you know, it sets the stage for, you know, as I said, sort of the housing, transportation, climate adaptation planning and resiliency, land use zoning. But typically it doesn't get involved when you start talking about a particular building, say. It's sort of at the higher level. It sets sort of the stage. Though I will say it does come into play when council is talking about a contract zone. So I think those are some of the ways in which you'll see the comprehensive plan sort of be active and available throughout the community. And then, so yeah, and then I heard the concern about, you know, particularly transportation. You know, one of the areas that's talked about is trying to provide for interconnected streets as a way of addressing some of the traffic concerns or issues that we have in the community. But certainly there's a recognition that there are existing neighborhoods that, you know, you're not going to necessarily force interconnected streets through. It's really about future development and growth. So I think there'll always be sort of community or neighborhood discussions around any type of improvements that might happen in a given area. And those are the type of discussions that's really, you know, the shovels in the ground stuff. that those help set the stage for any capital improvement projects that the town might undertake or that a development might undertake. Yeah, Ellen, please jump in.
Yeah, thanks. Hi, Ruby. It's good to see you join the call this evening. One of the things I wanted to add is, and I'm not sure if it has been lost or not somewhere in the process, but in reality, a lot of people, on these meetings have been talking and been concerned about the growth areas in town. And what I think could be lost in some of these discussions is the fact that this comprehensive plan changes almost nothing in regards to the actual growth areas in the town from the old 2006 plan. The growth areas in that plan were extremely similar to what we have today in this particular plan. So I hope people don't get worried or concerned that the growth areas that are designated in the plan are going to have significant impact on them or anybody else within the town, because they're virtually almost the same and maybe are totally the same. Jay would have certainly more information on that. And, concerned about reverting back and, putting an additional story on your house, I don't think is going to happen. You're not going to have to worry that people are going to go into existing neighborhoods and start to change things dramatically. This plan, in my opinion, really focuses on, right or wrong, I kind of use the term the warm and fuzzy things that we need to do as a town. And what I mean by that is we've taken care of the boilerplate. The old plan really addressed the needs that we had for zones and zoning changes and the types of things that many comprehensive plans include. But because we felt that those were pretty well covered in the 2006 plan, we were more concerned about making sure that we took care of things like our natural resources. If you kind of was able to follow along in the early part of the program with the video, those are the things we really were trying to focus on and to let people know that we wanted to improve those items. So in actuality, I think, like I said, the zoning boilerplate was done, it was accomplished. Many of the faces you see on the screen right now were very involved in the implementation of that plan. And we had a lot of town participation in the process of doing that. So I think that the growth areas are something that I hope people don't get too concerned about. And obviously they understand that it really has not changed significantly from the last plan that we had. So thanks, Jay.
Jay, it may be helpful to help people with the terminology. The growth term is really something that comes from some of the state requirements. They ask you as part of your comprehensive plan to designate growth areas, meaning tell us, the state and others, tell us where you expect growth to occur. And I think that's maybe a little bit different way of looking at it. It's not that we're looking to grow these areas, it's that we've designated these are the areas that could accept growth, and then following the state's terminology. And Jay, is that helpful to talk about the state terminology a little bit? Because I remember from the last meeting, the word growth is scary for people, so helpful to put that in context.
Great, thanks, Karen. Dreamer, I saw you had your...
Yeah, real quickly, and then I have to go. Hi, Ruby, how are you? I want you to know I'm still doing Tai Chi. Ruby was my Tai Chi instructor, for those of you who are wondering why in God's name is Jean Marie going off on this. Ruby, I heard you mention that you were concerned that your house was going to be eliminated or somehow moved or changed or whatnot by some diagramming you perhaps saw in the comprehensive plan. Just know that those diagrams and whatever, the comprehensive plan are not concrete plans. They're visionary. Oh, 15 years down the line, 20 years down the line, maybe it could look like this. So I just wanted to address that for you, because that I heard that loud and clear. It's like, wow, I'm looking at this map and my house is gone. So, please, I don't want people to think that these are the actual plans and this is what we're absolutely going to do. So I need to run, guys, but thank you very much.
Great to see you, Jean Marie, and it's fun to see you too, Ellen.
You all set, Ruby? I was just going to say, I think as Jean Marie was saying, that the plans are a lot of the sketches or the schematics are really intended to be representative of the concepts that are in the plan, not as Jean Marie was just saying, prescriptive to this is what's going to be built, rather sort of indicative of what could occur, and doesn't necessarily mean in that area, it could be in other areas. So hopefully that helps somewhat anyway. And all right, thank you, Ruby. Let's see, so the next hand I have up is, I think it's Louise, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Great, hi.
Hi, my name is Louise Secredell, and I recently moved to Scarborough. I bought my first home here, so very excited to make Scarborough my home. And I was excited to see this vision document. I have one comment. I noticed that our values or our guiding principles include a welcoming and vibrant community. And I was wondering if we could add some statistics in the demographics portion, particularly by race. We know that this is changing over time, and I think we want to be inclusive of everybody in our community, and I think this would be a great start and to add in this document.
Absolutely. We're working on a update of the demographics now, because we did those originally back in 2017. So that's a great suggestion to include that.
Great, thank you.
Great, thank you. I think as Karen just pointed out, and I think is one of the things we've heard, this process did start in 2017. And so we are sitting on the threshold of 21, hopefully get the year 2020 behind us. But we do recognize that there's opportunity to update a lot of the sort of demographic data. So we're working on that as part of this process in this time frame. So let's see, next I see Andrew. Hey, Andrew.
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Mackey. I am the new Executive Director of the Scarborough Land Trust. I have been on the job for 1 month, and I'm very pleased to be here and part of this process. And I want to thank everyone that has been involved in developing this comprehensive plan. Always a challenging process for any town, but so vital to its future. And I look forward with working with the town as I progress in my job. This morning, the Scarborough Land Trust submitted a 4-page letter to the town of comments. Jay has those. And Jay, feel free to share those with anyone that you think is appropriate. I don't want to go through all those comments tonight, but I do just want to hit just a couple quick points of comments that we made. Now, I might have been on the job for only a month, but the Scarborough Land Trust has been in existence for 43 years, and I have a very strong board of directors that has very deep roots in the community, and this was developed in concert among all of us. So I greatly appreciate their help and their history in our ability to comment on this plan. First, We would very much like to see the plan, because of its visionary nature and its aspirational nature, include a major goal of something like having a park, open space, or trail within a 10-minute walk of every resident in the community. We really think that these spaces are vital to the quality of life of all the residents and to the economic vitality of the community. Second, Scarborough is the only town in Maine that has passed 4 land bond acts and has used land bonds to protect open space, but we didn't really see any mention of it in the comprehensive plan. We'd really like that to be referenced because Scarborough is really at the cutting edge and has used them successfully for the benefit of residents, and would like this to continue in the future and have the voters have the ability to decide if they want more bonds for this purpose. The third comment that I'll make is the Scarborough Land Trust is offering to partner with the town on taking the next step. The comprehensive plan is a broad vision document, intentionally, not a prescriptive plan. So to accomplish some of these visions, we are offering to work with the town on a green space plan to give that specificity to visions like number 1 and 3, to work out some of those details, such as what is the feasibility of linking existing open space, providing access to the marine environment, what significant open space additions can be added, creating a Nonsuch River corridor protection plan, buffering Scarborough Marsh, and creating a town trail system. These are just some of the ideas that could be covered in a green space plan. We are very happy to do this and put some of our resources towards that effort and work with the town. And hopefully through this process, we might be able to include such a statement in the comprehensive plan. That would be the logical next step. Those were the only comments I was going to cover tonight. And again, I greatly appreciate the opportunity to do that.
Excellent. Thank you, Andrew. And you referenced, I did receive your email, and all emails that are received are going to be shared with the Long Range Planning Committee as all communications we received throughout these many years have been. So thanks again, Andrew. It's great. Looks like we have actually another Andrew McCusker, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
Yep.
I just realized there was a little blue button there. When you mentioned Andrew before, I immediately, my eyes perked up and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't expect to get called so soon. So I started talking. Anyway, thank you. I have not read the comprehensive plan. I've lived in Scarborough 20 years, 10 years at Higgins, and I still go there to work a lot. And I live on Woodside, which is next to the Congregational Church off Black Point Road. I totally love it here. I'm not going to leave the town until I'm gone, permanently, sort of thing. So I have a couple of questions that you can refer me to the plan if it's just too much of a question. The first one is, when I hear, right along, I've read the weekly news and stuff like that, about the town center. And I've been puzzled by it because it's actually kind of being designated that way. And yet, the town hall isn't there, the post office isn't there, the, pharmacies aren't, all of the things that you might think of as a town center, besides a donut shop, are elsewhere. And is the intention generally that these things will gradually be, not all of them, I don't mean, but then that will actually function in the way that I'm thinking a normal town center does? And if so, what will that do to everything that's at Oak Hill? Should I just say my other two things or stop there?
That one's weighty enough, probably. Karen, do you want to start on that one, or do you want me to? Yep.
Yeah. Well, I think a couple of things. I think we've always envisioned the town center, as the Oak Hill area plus the Downs as part of the new downtown development district that was created. And so it really is an attempt to blend what we've always considered is the traditional part of downtown, where the post office is and all the other services in Oak Hill, really blending that with the municipal center at the core. So that's really part of what the plan talks about. And I think the plan started before the Downs was approved. So we might have a little bit of reworking to do just to put some more information about what's happened and that's happened since the plan started. But I think absolutely we envision the committee envisions that the Oak Hill is definitely going to continue to be part of the town center.
And I do think part of what is talked about when town center language is really spoke about quite frequently when we talk about the Downs development. And I think in that context, it's really about sort of the pattern of development, trying to make things a little more pedestrian oriented, a bit more of an active center than Oak Hill, which certainly has, as you pointed out, sort of a lot of our civic elements, but it's really dominated by the very heavy Route 1 corridor. And though we're working on some pedestrian improvements, really thinking about, as Karen was saying, sort of blending the two areas, where the Downs is developing much more sort of that mixed use, has more residential components. You might start to see residences over office spaces, restaurants, and those sorts of things as the development continues. So I think that's some of what's being articulated there.
For me, that's a perfect answer. I appreciate it because I've never put the two together. I just kind of always kept hearing, like you said, the Downs, town center. I'm like, I don't get it. And now I do. I appreciate that. I'll skip one of the things I might toss in. If it becomes important enough to me, I'll send an email comment. But the other one I just want to, is I think it was probably, aside from watching the development at Higgins, where there's these nice little houses that have been there forever, and somebody buys one for $800,000 and tears it down and puts up this big, huge structure. I mean, it's just changing the character of the place, but it's going to happen. It happens everywhere on the coast eventually. And so I don't think there's anything about the village concept that's going to make that change. Nor could I think of a method that it wouldn't change. Most of us that have spent time out there liked it the way it used to be 20 years ago, or probably a little bit longer even. But anyway, the development element here is the only thing that I think I've seen that I really didn't like in the development here was on Eastern Road, next to the Scarborough Land Trust trails, was that development is done beautifully. I mean, it's a neighborhood. It's got sidewalks. It's duplexes. It's got a real nice mix. But what you see as you go down that road, and what you see as you drive by on Black Point Road every day, it just could have used some architecture to these big apartment buildings. And I just think, you know, if there's anything that ever can be said or done that kind of pushes that a little harder toward paying attention to that stuff, because, you know, let's face it, I mean, you know, it's there's what we go by, the traffic, there's all these things, but there's also what we see. And they really those did not fit the character of that place. And aside from that, I mean, I love Scarborough. Like I said, I'm not planning to go anywhere. So I thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you. All right. Next, I see Jim has his hand up, and I'll make mention to the rest of you on the attendees list that Jim is the last one with a hand up. So if you have something you want to say, there we go. A couple more popped up. Good. Jim.
Yes, I've noticed there was a lot of talk about different parks and the town center, all kinds of different facilities for outdoor recreation. But a lot of the roads in Scarborough don't have bike lanes or methods to get there without walking. Is there something in the long range plan to start converting the roads to better access for that?
Yeah, so the comprehensive plan does talk, the transportation pieces really talk about trying to become more multimodal. You know, it's pretty clear Scarborough developed principally, you know, around the automobile, auto-centric type development. So there is quite a bit of discussion around different enabling multiple modes of transportation, be it, you know, sort of off-road trails, be it bike lanes, you know, enhanced sidewalks and what have you. So I think, you know, there is that notion is addressed in the plan. Again, as we talked about, doesn't necessarily prescribe exactly where those things are going to go, but it certainly starts to indicate that as future transportation plans or capital improvement plans are made, that those are the type of things that we should be thinking about including. Go ahead, Al.
Oh, you're muted.
Still muted. Still muted.
There we go. Whoa. What I started to say was I was on the planning board for about 10 years. And one of the things that we were doing back even at that time, which is before this plan even started, there are areas around Scarborough that might actually appear a little strange, because whenever we were doing projects along major roads, Route 1, for example, if a project came on and they were renovating a particular piece of property along Route 1, for example, we would have them actually put in a sidewalk, even though that sidewalk would not connect to anything on either side. So we've actually, as a town, been in the process for quite some time now on our major connector roads to have the applicants on these property renovations be putting in sidewalks as part of their plan so that connectivity can occur. The one thing I learned over time was that when a building gets built, generally that building's there for 40 or 50 years before you ever get to see that come up to a planning board again. So if we don't get it right the first time, it's going to be like that for a good long time. So I do believe that there are steps already in play that help us with that connectivity, albeit it takes us time to be able to enact it. And we're also doing things with some grants and stuff. I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, Jay, but there was a lot of sidewalks put in along Route 1 down in the Dunstan area, I think a year or two ago. So we are working towards that as we can make it happen.
Yep. Thanks, Alan. Thank you, Jim. Let's see, I see Jeremy is up next.
Hi, can you hear me?
We got you. Yep.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, everyone. And I am a seasonal resident, so I'm not a voter, but I'm a member. I'm on the board of the Land Trust, and I sent in a letter, Jay, to you today. I also sent it to Jean Marie, but hopefully you received that. I have a couple of thank you to everyone who's been involved in the plan, and have a question and then a couple of suggestions. I guess my question is related to Scarborough's growth and if there's a growth cap or not that's currently in place. So that's my question. And my suggestion, I have a couple suggestions, but one, I think someone else alluded to this earlier, but I think it would be helpful to have more data, whether it's number of new houses, police, fire, public works budgets, the number of miles of roads, new roads, population, demographics, and come up with some of those statistics and then compare those to other towns in the greater Portland area or Southern Maine. I think that would be helpful to tease out. I think also there was a cost of community services study done maybe 10, 11, 12 years ago. And I think it said something to the effect of every new house is a $1,200 net loser for the town. So things have changed in the last, again, that may have been 15 years old, so that the computations would look a lot different today than they would when they were done. But I think it'd be interesting to look at to see if you can figure out what is that number. And my suggestion would be, well, one of the things I see a lot is, and I'm sure you all have are more aware of it than I am, is traffic. And depending on where you live, you can't go out, you can't drive out of your house sometimes, or you have to have a big delay. Sometimes you can't go left or right on Route 1, depending on the time of day. So I think that's all, a lot of that is tied to growth. And I just hope that Scarborough can consider putting a growth cap back in place if one is not already in place, and just slow down the growth that's been happening. I think traffic is tied to growth, and hopefully Scarborough can really be smart about where it encourages development to go, and also discourage development from going in certain places. I think of, say, if there are 500 new houses, I don't know what the metric is per how many cars per house, but 500 houses at 1.5 cars per house, that's 750 more cars on Route 1, and then a lot of other cars that are involved as well. So the more growth, just the more traffic, and I think that really affects quality of life. And I would be surprised if that's not one of the top 5 things that people always say about the negatives of Scarborough and what can we improve on and what can we do better. So I guess I just come back to I thought there were some very good parts of the plan. I was pleased to see that the marsh and natural resources were put in one of the visions, I think in Vision 1. And I hope that, I think also another one was the active living section of trying to make it more walkable and bikeable, connect open spaces and parks. I'm on the board of the Land Trust, so I'm admittedly biased towards that stuff, but I think it speaks to a quality of life in Scarborough. And I think that Scarborough's just had, I would say, too much growth. And I hope that the next 10 years, Scarborough will be really, really smart and deliberate about where it encourages growth, where it encourages the development to be. Another component of that is just being stricter about zoning and not changing zoning based on the request that's in front of the people making the deliberations. So I see that there's a lot of good stuff in the plan, and I was pleased to see marsh and natural resource protection in there. And those are my suggestions, and curious to hear, Jay, what about the growth cap. So thank you, and thank you all.
Great, thank you, Jeremy. And I did receive your email, and that will be shared out. So yes, the town does. We do have a growth management ordinance that has been in place since, oh gosh, I'm going to say 2003. And the study you were referencing, I believe is our growth and services report. That was actually done back in 2000, or at least published in 2000. So that's now 20 years. And that's actually been a big part of the community discussion through this summer and fall, particularly with our town council, have been looking at our growth management ordinance and how sort of the provisions therein and what those growth caps are. The Long Range Planning Committee actually provided some information with that regards too. So I do have your email address. I'll try to share some information with you as I remember to. But for those that are interested, you can go back to the town's website or our YouTube channel where the meetings are being preserved. And if you look back to the ordinance committee meetings, I think of August and September, there was some pretty good information, Jeremy, related to sort of the questions you were asking about housing starts and the growth cap. Let's see.
Jay, if I could just add to that, the state also has a formula which basically tells each town how many housing starts they have to have. And I might have the numbers wrong, but I think Scarborough has to have like 134 based on state calculations. And I think our current ordinance allows for 135. So, I mean, we're right basically at the limit to which the state says we have to maintain. Correct. I might have stated that wrong, Jay, but I mean, it's something like that.
Yeah, that's a whole nother topic, but certainly the state does have in state statute, you need to maintain over at least, I can't remember what percentage over a 10-year average. And as you said, Alan, our 10-year average is 134. And our current growth cap is 135. I think one of the things that folks have seen, though, clearly is a lot of that growth has occurred in the last 4 or 5 years because we have a mechanism called our reserve pool, and it definitely, we are now veering into a whole nother discussion realm outside the comp plan. And so I would say if folks are interested, do go take a look on the website under the Ordinance Committee. There's a lot of information there, or email me and I can share all sorts of information around that very specific item. But this actually brings up a good point. One of the things that I've been hearing through this process is that one of the things that the comprehensive plan doesn't right now articulate very well, we talk about growth areas and people seem to appreciate the general vision around preserving a lot of our suburban and rural character and trying to direct growth to Dunstan and Oak Hill and the Crossroads or the Downs type area. But the plan really we don't mention anything about the pace of growth. And so I think that is one of the things that we've heard through this process that the Long Range Planning Committee, I'm sure, will be talking about as we sort of carry forward here. So thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
Yep. I have next Caitlin.
Hi there. I just wanted to first off thank everyone who worked on the comprehensive development plan, because reading through it, it obviously took quite a lot of work, and there's quite a lot of thought and work that obviously went into it. So just wanted to thank you for that. I have a lot of thoughts that I won't share all of them today, but just briefly, one question and a suggestion. Under Vision 5, talks a little bit about the portion of Route 1 and Oak Hill and Dunstan being redeveloped as more walkable and bikeable. And that's consistent throughout the plan. And I really like that, talking about more walkable, bikeable areas. And I wondered if it might be possible to consider also adding accessibility. And so when I say accessibility, For example, I'm thinking of areas of, say, Route 1, where there's older crosswalks, like older crosswalk buttons that you have to press. And like there's an area between Commerce Drive that you cross to the medical center across Route 1, and then you go across to the park, that kind of area. And the crosswalk poles, whatever you want to call them, they seem kind of outdated, and that I myself have some physical disabilities, and the height of the buttons, the way you have to press them, they don't light up, they don't give you any auditory cues. And I'm just comparing that in terms of, say, Falmouth. They've done a good job with those on their Route 1. I believe it's Route 1, that main strip right there. And the crosswalk symbols are at a better height. They give auditory cues. They light up, I believe, as well. And so I'm just thinking of, in future planning, and also, I don't know if there's any, it seemed that there may be some revamping, so to speak, of some of those existing areas, and kind of adding maybe accessibility to some of those, and making sure when we have certain newer sidewalks or things that they might have ramp ability, so that you don't have a curb that somebody has to step down, things like that. So that's just a suggestion that I thought of there that might be good to include. And then the only other question I had is, I also agree with, I think people have also said a lot of good feedback tonight. And I appreciated as well the conservation of land, Scarborough Marsh, the central vision. And I wondered if there is any opportunity to expand when we talk about protecting the marsh. There's a point in there that says the majority of new residential development will be limited to those growth areas. And it seems like that's pretty obvious in the plan, that that's the intent behind it, is to limit to those growth areas. But then it seems like there's a little bit of gray area in there, that there could be some development still, the way it's worded, but then not necessarily on the maps. It looks like on the maps that a lot of that is conservation area and conservation land. But so I'm just wondering if you might be able to clarify that a little bit, if that makes sense.
I think what you may be referencing, and I'm just trying to piece it together. One of the things that we talk about in the comprehensive plan is within our growth areas, particularly Oak Hill, Dunstan, and the Downs. These are the areas where we actually have a few of our threatened and impaired streams. And so you're right, around the marsh is largely protected. A lot of that land is owned by the state, or it's in resource protection or shoreland protection zoning. But what I think you may be referring to is that comment around, though we're intending to direct growth to these areas, we need to be cognizant of there are certain environmental constraints that we need to plan around and plan for. And I think some of that, and so, some of the conversation that I've had with folks is, well, if we know that there's those type of current constraints in those growth areas, maybe you look to growing elsewhere. And I think part of the conversation there that we need to think about is, well, by, if you trying to preserve and protect those areas that aren't already impaired or threatened, and to keep growth away from those areas, you can really maintain more of the streams and the natural features. But again, as we try to direct growth to limited areas of town, we just need to be mindful of those constraints that are in there. And are there measures in place that can enhance the current conditions? And we're starting to see some of that work through some stream restoration grants the town has gone after, some floodplain mitigation we've done in the Oak Hill area. So I think those are the type, is that the sort of language you were talking about, Caitlin?
Yeah, it's basically, It's on the page, it's on the first page of the Vision 1, and it's 4, and it said that the majority of new residential development and virtually all non-residential development should be, basically it sounded like should be located within the growth areas, which I agree with. I was just wondering, since it said the majority, like that wording almost sounded like there could be potential for more growth in there if possible. And I just was, anything that we can do to conserve more of those natural resources is just my main goal. So that's just where I was coming from, is that seemed like the wording of that, and there was a little bit confusing as to if there could be more kinds of, development within that area. And it didn't look like it on the map, but that wording was a little confusing in there, to me anyways. I don't know.
Yep, and I think the idea they're saying the majority is there's a recognition that there are other properties, in our rural and existing neighborhoods that have opportunity for additional growth, that there are property owners who have certain rights for development. And so I think, it's a recognition that though the intent is to try to direct most of the growth, that we, the town, can't sort of preclude or exclude growth from happening in other areas. But I think just harkening back to a conversation we had a few moments ago about the that growth management ordinance, really by the comprehensive plan setting the stage that we're trying to direct the majority of growth into certain areas, we can continue, if the policy makers so decide, continue the current policy we have that really limits the number of growth permits or development permits that are available outside the growth areas, in the rural areas. And so you can create sort of a differential, a growth differential, if you will. So.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, 2 cents there on my end. And to be clear, nothing can happen without zoning ordinance change. The comprehensive plan, even though it may have some inference, nothing happens based on the comprehensive plan. It only will come through a change to a zoning ordinance or through municipal, a change in our town. So to be safe, nothing will happen until there is a significant process within town ordinance for there to be additional growth in the non-growth areas.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Let's see. So Dave Walton.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for hanging out. This has been pretty fascinating for me. I had a question. Jean Marie said something that caught my ear, and I wondered, I've been frustrated by really what I see as a lack of data everywhere for a citizen to understand, historic data of the housing units by type over the last 5 to 10 years. She says she doesn't have data on the growth in population, which is fairly shocking to me. How does a citizen find data? How do you guys find data? And if you guys don't have data, shouldn't accumulation of data and being much more strategic and numbers oriented be a part of the comprehensive plan moving forward?
Sure, Jay, I can take that one for.
Yeah.
We did have a significant amount of data with respect to population growth, how it compares to other communities, housing growth, housing prices. What we haven't done is updated it since we did it in 2017. And that's what we're going to do really in the next 2 weeks or so, is refresh that data so we have the most current information. But we certainly do, in that plan, there is a chapter that really goes through what's the historical growth been in Scarborough, how many decades have actually been growing much faster than what we're growing now. It really puts growth in context. But we're going to refresh that, and that should be helpful. And all of our data, most of our data is really coming from the Census Bureau, both from the American Community Survey, as well as the U.S. Census, which is a little bit different from the American Community Survey, but both done by the Census Bureau. But that's the main source of our data. Some of the housing data comes from, the Real Estate Association here in Maine, and that they keep very good track of housing prices. So we try to balance what we see from the census with what we see on the ground, and sometimes point out where there are discrepancies.
Is there data that you wish you had, that you as volunteers and people who care about this town very much wish you had and have never had access to?
There's always information we'd love to have more of, but we do have a wealth of information, I think, that we've certainly collected as we've talked about the growth management ordinance and a few other things. But sure, there's always more data that we could have.
The other, I'll just mention for you, David, and others, a lot of information is provided in the town's annual report. I know my department, we talk about how many housing starts and permits and those sorts of things is in there. Understanding that's not the easiest thing for people to find and necessarily sort of look back across the years by pulling out multiple annual reports. And there's actually not too long ago, we had started a discussion with this committee about trying to create a community dashboard. And I think that's, something that I know it's been on Karen and my radar. And it's really about time and resources. But I think, as Karen said, we're always trying to find new data sources, teaming with our associates at the regional level and other communities and everywhere else we can find.
That would be my only suggestion as an addition, would be to somehow officialize the welcoming of technology and data for decision making in the town.
Absolutely.
And then second, this may not be answered by you guys. I'm also concerned about the Downs, and we'll be paying attention to that ad hoc committee as well. What influence does this plan have on the actual decisions made at the Downs? Does this have any impact, real impact on that, or is it kind of a separate thing?
I would say the impact it has is really at that high level, as we've been talking about. Really, right. Yes, the Downs is an area we want to see growth. We want to try to see the Downs and Oak Hill sort of there being a merger, if you will, or some type of cross connections or what have you. So I think it's really sort of at the high level, but I think, what you may be referencing, or what I'm inferring you're referencing to, is the committee that council is establishing. I would say really they're diving right in, focusing project specific, right down to the ground, where the comprehensive plan is really, at the 30,000 foot level, looking down from space, looking at a broader stroke.
Yeah, I think this is the last thing I'll say, but I think from a maybe historical point of view, the concern with this document is that it starts as a visionary document, but then it gets construed as the will of the people once it's adopted and used to defend decisions. So there's a little bit of a suspicion, I would say, from the people I've talked to. Is like, okay, it's visionary, but then 5 years from now, it's going to be the thing that says, hey, no, this is what you guys wanted. So just something to keep in mind that people are aware of.
Yep.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you. Let's see. Caitlin, I see you still have your hand up, but I'm not sure if you wish to speak again or not, but I do see someone new with their hand up, and down it went. All right. Nancy.
Hi there.
Hi, Nancy.
Hi, Nancy Kroll. I'm also the library director, but I'm not going to be referring to the public library, although we have submitted some comments for the plan. What I'd like to address is the section on arts and community, which I find pathetically inadequate and would really appreciate having you take another look at and see if it can't be a little more encouraging to somebody who might want to enhance the arts in our community. The comments that are in there reference that everything's in Portland, so we don't have to worry. They muddle the the concerts in the park. Nothing is there about community theater. It's just, I find it ironic that we haven't mentioned Winslow Homer in any of the plan as far as I can tell, which I find pretty ironic. It's not in the history section either. There's a lot that we can offer in our town. I have spoken to others in our community as well as a gallery owner who has left our community and found Scarborough very frustrating. So I just think there's a lot we can offer in this area that would encourage people in all kinds of arts. So don't forget there are many more than just the painting creative arts. So I appreciate you just taking another look at that section. I realize this is visionary and I think you've done a nice job of saying why the arts are important. But I think it can be expanded and be a more welcoming document. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let's see, we're getting close to 7:30. After an hour and a half, I know Zoom usually becomes pretty tiring for folks, so I understand if we don't see many more hands, but I do want to continue to offer the opportunity for those who haven't spoken yet we'd be happy to hear what you have to say. Again, my email, you hopefully can see right there. Please jot that down and feel free to send email in. That I will be sharing that with the Long Range Planning Committee. So as I've been hesitating here, I'm not seeing any additional hands go up. So just again, a reminder as to the process moving forward from here. The Long Range Planning Committee will be considering all these comments, any other comments we heard at the prior public forums, as well as what we receive in email, making some adjustments to the plan, and with the anticipation of making a final recommendation out of committee by sometime in the new year, probably mid-January type time frame. And then that is, as I said, a recommendation from this committee is ultimately a council decision on the comprehensive plan. And so the council, I know they actually have a workshop to talk about the plan next Thursday, the 10th. So I think they'll be formulating what their procedures and process will look like. So folks should pay attention there. And it looks like I delayed long enough that I do see another hand has gone up. So thank you, Barbara. You're muted, Barbara. I'm gonna click a ask to unmute button here. Barbara, you're still muted on our end.
Okay, is that all right now?
Yep, we got you now.
Okay, I'm filling in for Barbara. Basically, I'm referring on to page 91. On page 91, it talks about Scarborough having 8 miles of beaches that are beautiful. The only problem is that the erosion is a major issue. And I think it would be great if you could put a footnote in on that particular page. Algonquin Beach did a study in 2015 on sand trapping that's been very successful. And it'd be ideal for the various communities along the coast to try to pick up this proven program. Peter Sosniski from the state has embraced it and indicated that it can be done in various areas of Scarborough. So rather than waiting down the road when the erosion has taken over all the beaches, it would be something that could be done now, and it's very low cost. A pack of shims costs $5. So it's very low cost. It basically requires manpower, volunteers. So if you could put a footnote on that particular page, I'd be very appreciative, and it might help the town.
Very good. Thank you.
Kiddo.
Okay, folks, I'm gonna hesitate for another moment, but if no other hands go up. Alan, I was gonna say, if anyone else on the committee wants to have any closing statements.
I just want to again thank everybody who joined this meeting this evening. This process has been going on for quite some time. Oftentimes we feel as a committee that we'd love to have a little more public comment than what we've received along the way. I don't want to take away from any of the people who have had significant impact and participated along the way. But to see, as I saw as many as 30 people online tonight, the number's been going up and down as you might expect, but to have that kind of public communication and involvement is really great. And I want to thank all of those who participated this evening and gave us some good insight. So thank you.
Thanks, Alan, and nice job hesitating. I see David Walton has put his hand up. So David, since no one else has their hand up.
Yeah, well, it was just, I had another follow-up for Karen, just as I was thinking about the data coming in. You said when? The new data about growth in the town?
So we're working towards having a refresh by mid-December, by December 15th or so.
Okay, because it seemed that would be tantamount for this comprehensive plan. I mean, if growth has been this way for the last 3 years and no one has any idea, that would certainly affect, you know, all sorts of things within the plan. It would seem to me like, so I guess I'm wondering how, when that data comes in, what is the process of sharing it with the community, and how do you anticipate that changing what you feel about growth in this town?
Well, I won't speak to how I feel about growth in the town. I'll leave that to the committee members. But we will really have that information put back in the chapter as part of the comprehensive plan. But we'll be posting that information as soon as it's ready, so people can see it and the council can see it.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Close, I guess I'll say we're very appreciative of all the comments that have come in. We'll also be reading and paying attention to what comes in through Jay's email and any comments that are brought in through the town. We're gonna take another swipe at this with the town council's comments, and then hopefully bring this to a conclusion in the new year. So thank you all.
Great. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, everyone. I think with that, we'll say good night.
Good night, folks.
Okay, thanks, Karen.
You all. Bye now.